has anybody seen one of these little things before?
No.
Any idea what this might be? Oh, good. Absolutely. This is a rope maker. And it's a homemade rope maker, by the way. It doesn't look all nice and spiffy like some of them do. But it's something I just put together in about 30 minutes at home with some spare parts that I had. So this is called a hand crank, and it just rotates. And if you'll notice, all three of these hooks rotate the same direction and at the same speed the whole time. And if anybody ever needs to get closer to get a closer look, feel free to do that. But this is how this thing works. It just rotates around. That's all it does. It's as simple as that. Sometimes this moves out a little bit and gets in your way, but you can always shift it around. All right, so that is the hand crank. The next part of making rope is this little device here, and it could be a wide variety of things, but this is called a hook swivel. It's got the hook part for hooking into the rope that you're going to be, or the twine that you're going to make, and a swivel so it freely rotates. And this is going to be at the other end of the rope. This will be at one end, and then there'll be one on the other end. Third piece of equipment is called a rope separator. You can tell I spent hours doing that. But it just keeps these like a three-stranded rope, keeps each strand separated while you're making it, and that'll become significant here in a little bit. And then I have a beaming rod, and we'll get into that later. So with these three items, what I want to do is actually make a rope for you right here. It's not going to be that long, but I want to explain how it's done. Here's the challenge. In each of your teams, just realize that you're going to be making a rope also. So make sure you soak in the details amongst the 6 of you so that you know what's going to happen. A brave volunteer to come right up here and hold this hand crank. Come on down. All right, and I need someone on the other end of this rope just to be the hook swivel holder. And let's say, and this is going to determine how long the rope is that I'm making. So we'll make it, about 6 feet long or so. That'll be fine. So you take some twine. Take some twine, and what you're going to do is just tie a loop into one end. By the way, when you pull rope out of a spool like this, it's always best to take it out the center of the spool. Otherwise, you're ending up doing this stuff all the time. Otherwise, it pulls straight out the middle, and you never have to unwind it. So I got my loop here. Now, 3 hooks. I always start with the closest one to me, and I just put that on there. Now what I'm going to do is he's going to stay where he is all the time. You're going to stay where you are all the time. But we're just going to clip this thing on there. So now I'm going to go to the second hook, hook it on there, and move it back over to the clip. Then I'm going to go to the third one. Now at this point, this has 2 strands, this has 2 strands, and this first one I started with just has 1 strand. Well, we want them to be even, so I just bring this back up to the first. So I've completed a whole repetition, and at this point I could make a rope. But that makes a really skinny rope, and I want to make a little bit thicker rope. So all I do is continue to do the same pattern. So I go back to the middle, and I go to the last one again, and back to the first one again. I could stop here, but I'm going to do one more just for the fun of it. Back to the middle. To the last one. And then all the way back to the end here. Now what I'm going to do is just kind of estimate. Notice these strings are all the same. They're none are out of whack. What I'm going to do is estimate where I need to tie that overhand knot and just take that off and then do that. And Pete, will you grab the scissors out of that suitcase? And I hook this on that first hook. So now we have 3 separate sets of strands. So I need one more volunteer. And she's going to make sure that these 3 bundles are separated with the rope separator. But you're going to move it all the way to the end over there, kind of making sure those are all separated. Sometimes you have to work at it a little bit, like combing bad hair. Okay.
Girls, you're good.
Very good. So this is the setup ready to make a rope. We have to do one more thing that's really vital, and that is know which direction you're going to rotate this, the hand crank. So what you do is you just look at one of the strands, because they're all going the same direction, And you see if you open it up so that it untwists it, that's a bad thing. You want to twist it more. You want to make it tighter when you twist. And so I can tell by this that this is going to have to go this direction around that way. And so what he's going to do, his job is just going to be to crank and kind of listen to the other two folks. Your job is going to be to make sure that none of these start binding up on each other. And your job is just to kind of hold that, and you just hold by the end and let it swivel freely. And you just start cranking this out.
Do I move with it or?
No, well, you're doing great. What's going to happen after lots of cranks, they're going to start noticing on this end, it's going to start wanting to bind up on the other side of that rope separator. It's going to feel like there's some tension to it. So if you move that up just a little bit, you'll notice.
So how's Toad?
And so you just keep moving it toward him as it feels like you need to. It's just a matter, it's kind of a judgment call. It's cooler than turning butter. It's a lot easier than turning butter. All right, so at this point, we don't want to just let go of this because it'll undo. So now we want to whip this end so that it doesn't unwind when we cut it. And the way to whip it, for those highly detailed folks, whip it good. You just put you put a loop in a single strand. Usually with the cord that you're going to be using, use a couple of feet of it. You don't have to. I'm kind of chintzy with this stuff. So what I'm going to do is lay this on top of the rope, and it's going to have that bend in the rope. You see that part? The bend in the. Okay. So I'm going to take the long end and I'm going to start wrapping it toward the bend, and I'm going to do it tight. Whoops. Now let me try this again. And I'm going to do it tightly. So I'm just wrapping it around the whole rope, and I'm tightening up on each wrap, wrapping it toward that bite end or that bend end. And on what you're going to be doing later, you're going to use this make it about an inch long, or the wrap's about an inch. Once I get to where I've got a shorter end piece, this is critical. This was the long end. I'm going to stick it through the loop. All right, still kind of holding it so it doesn't come apart. And then I'm going to grab the end that I haven't even been touching, the other end of that little rope, and when I pull it, it makes the bend
Look at that.
pop into inside. And so now it's self-contained here. So I'm just going to cut this rope. All right, very nice. And then, if you want to make it look nice, you cut the ends of that, and, all that kind of stuff. So one of the interesting things about this, thank you, is on this end you don't have to whip it. It'll naturally just stay in this kind of formation and not untwist on its own. All right. Now the next thing you want to do is this raw rope. It looks really, really good, but you're wanting to beam it. What's called beaming it. And a way to beam it, let's say if the two of us are holding this, you wrap this around, then you get two other volunteers to just kind of try to saw this thing back and forth in half. Just kind of rub it back and forth. Do it all the way to the end if you can.
Oh, back and forth this way?
Yeah. Oh. So all that beaming does, is make all the fibers kind of line up, and it makes it a little stronger and look a little nicer. Now, if I had a torch, what I would do is I would torch to get all the fuzz off of it, because a lot of people don't like the fuzz part. So here's your assignment. Each team will receive a full spool of twine. This is sisal cord. Interesting thing about sisal cord is it's made from cactus plants, and I'll let y'all figure out how to do that before I mess it up. But you have the entire roll to use. What I need is a rope that's approximately 10 feet long. You can use all of the cord if you want to. Using the same technique, however, you are unable to use a rope machine to build this rope. You are the machine. You are the machine as a team. And the only things you can really use are things that are on you, or that you can find just close by, not my stuff, but like, stuff that you can find like right there on the ground or something like that. No going into the kitchen, doing crazy things like that. Just what you can find just right around you to make your own rope. We're going to test this rope for strength at the end by seeing if it can support your entire team's weight at the same time. So it has to be strong enough to support your entire team when being hung from a tree. And I'll show you where that is once we get it done.